Burn live, burn live, burn live, burn live, burn. On my intro, normally it'd be like burn live, burn live. But no, burn live where we burn through conversation trying to ash out common sense. Welcome to the podcast where we live stream every day. No filters, no nothing, giving you the wrong cut. Okay? I got two people on the phone line. That's what we're going to start calling that. I got two people on the phone lines calling from down under. Calling from Australia, mate. Good day, mate.
Good day, mate. All the way from Georgia.
I know they like Georgia ain't there. Hold on, wait a minute. Wait a massive graphical minutes. For shits and giggles, are you there?
I'm here. I'm just still a little bit disheveled. I'm trying to get to a place where I sit down and play.
No, that's okay. That's okay. You know what I'm saying? I appreciate having the callers today.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? That's what we're just gonna start calling people that we can't see you. It's just callers. Call in.
Okay.
And I've been wanting to pick a bone with this topic, and I really wanted to have a real big conversation. So I think I'm gonna have to start having this conversation in small increments on here until I can formulate a big panel. And by saying that, I'm gonna bring up this picture right here. And I bring this picture up because we have this image of this man, and if the image is not true or factually, because this guy has broken down a lot of things about MLK, and people are like, well, you know, the way that he articulates or form his opinion may not be always okay with everybody, but then how he formulate his opinion is through the contents of Martin Luther King and how he word himself, and other people has written books about Martin Luther King and stuff like that. So that's where he began his contents from, and how he looks at Martin Luther King. And that's why he looks at Martin Luther King and call him a socialist. And then you get reactions like that. And I expect reactions like that where people are like, what? Don't disrespect MLK. How dare you disrespect MLK? How could you? Thank you for the 14 people that just came in. You know what I'm saying? We're breaking down this Black History moment. And I seen this quote. I haven't heard this quote. You haven't heard this quote. And I want to respond to this quote because I guarantee it's going to be very informational and controversial, and something that we can have a discussion. So without a further ado, let's get into this.
He was a covert yet disciplined Leninist. In his book, What is to be Done, Vladimir Lenin said that the intellectually developed proletarian introduces socialism into the class struggle where the conditions of the people allow that to be done, and that the task of a social democracy is to imbue the proletariat with a consciousness of its position and of its tasks.
There must be a better distribution of wealth, and maybe America must move toward a democratic socialism. Call it what you may, call it democracy or call it democratic socialism, but there must be a better distribution of wealth within this country for all of God's children.
To push this deception even further, King, who was fully aware of the old Vladimir Lenin adage that the goal of socialism is communism, was strategically exploiting grievances to push democratic socialism, and then turning around and telling the American people that the way to resist communism is to embrace his political vision.
The more we demonstrate the validity of the democratic way to the peoples of the world, this is the most powerful weapon we have against communism.
It was all just a Marxist strategy. Deny communism with your lips while pursuing it with your actions.
Early in the revolution, Fidel Castro sought to reassure that this is not a communist revolution in any sense of the word, and there are no communists in position of control. Cubans rallied round the slogan, Venceremos, we shall overcome.
They wanted to destabilize the United States of America, and they knew they had to do it from within because that's how they always done it.
The planks of the speech were established by Bayard Rustin. It was heavily drafted, edited, and revised by his communist advisor and speechwriter Stanley Levison, his communist sympathizing lawyer Clarence B. Jones, and communist sympathizing comrade and minister Wyatt T. Walker. In order to give the speech the highest likelihood of success, they pulled from successful speeches and literature from the past, including the March on Washington in 1932.
This is the greatest demonstration of Americanism we've ever had.
As the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation.
They pulled from a speech given in the early 50s by Archibald Carey Jr.
From every mountainside, let freedom ring. Not only from the Green Mountains and the White Mountains of Vermont and New Hampshire, not only from the Catskills of New York.
Let freedom ring from every hill and molehill of Mississippi, from every mountainside. Let freedom ring.
And even a line from a Confederate journalist from an 1872 newspaper article.
I have a dream. My four little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a
D-Land,
I can hear you. I can hear you now.
Okay.
Yeah, my mic was off.
Oh, yeah, I couldn't hear you. I saw you talking and I was like, is something wrong with my... Never mind. Anyway, go ahead. We're good now.
Okay. So the first video was talking about the people that surrounded Martin Luther King, surrounded himself by that imposed communism. This right here is breaking down this speech. And I do remember, and I know people can like, y'all probably never heard that, but his famous speech was told was written by a woman. Oh, you know, a woman wrote that speech. I have always was told that, and it was, you know what I'm saying, with no evidence to back that up. It was just always, you know what I'm saying, that speech, to every good man there's a good woman. True indeed. But to really realize that none of his speeches was written by a woman, and that ain't got nothing to do with this part right here. I just want to bring that up for my family members who watch this show and be like, oh wow, I can't believe he just put us out there on Front Street like that. I did. And to understand that his speech were made and presented by people who had a whole nother agenda. And it's frowned upon or is praised is two different attributes. Most people look at that speech and like that's the most wonderful speech ever in Black history for as speeches. But the intent behind that speech is it seems to not be. Some of the speeches from some people were good, but some of the speeches from people weren't all too shabby.
The planks of the speech were established by Bayard Rustin. It was heavily drafted, edited, and revised by his communist advisor and speechwriter, Stain Levison.
Stain Levison. You know what I'm saying? And I'm assuming that's this black guy right here. You know what I'm saying? We don't even hear about Stain Levison. When the last time y'all heard something about who? Matter of fact, you know what time it is. I ain't gonna lie, I don't know who Stain Levison is. Never heard of the guy.
I can come up real quick. Who's his name?
Stain Levison. Right here.
Oh, you got? Oh,
no, right there.
Stan Levison. Okay.
So
Stan Levingston.
Lynn, and for shits and giggles.
Yes.
Could y'all be okay of understanding that one of our greatest leaders in our history and time had an agenda that had nothing to do positive for the Black community?
I can believe anything.
Who would be that person you're talking about?
Martin Luther King.
Oh shit, man.
You said yes?
Yeah, bro. Like Martin Luther King used to cheat on his wife, all type of shit. But like, you know what I'm saying? You gotta separate the man from like, you know,
okay,
like what he stood for and what him himself is two different things. You know what I'm saying? Got differentiate from that. You know,
differentiate.
Yeah, it wouldn't come out.
I know it. It got stuck in there. I seen it. I could believe it. It doesn't have anything to do with the person, like you said, you know, the infidelities or anything like that. It's just that a lot of people are influenced.
Yeah,
when you were in, they're easily swayed.
If you don't do something that they,
if you have a need, and I can fulfill it,
that's all.
Usually, people are willing to bail. So I can't believe that. I'm not gonna say he might not have started out with the best intentions, but through everything that he went through and everything he experienced while he was doing everything, he probably got to the point where he lost a whole lot and he just wanted to change his life. And now, I'll switch agendas. What you want?
See, I think it was opposite. I think that he started out with the Black community in mind, and then he realized that there was a bigger a bigger
Agendas?
agenda. And
Right.
so then he started to include other people in there, poor white communities and Latino farm workers and things like that. So I think that he expanded his agenda afterwards.
Okay. That's another perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of the jury, people that are watching out there in the audience, is it important to have a good understanding of the past, or just go with what we was so-called taught? What is a little bit more important? The actual fact that's coming out now, or we're just gonna go with what we was taught, even though that might be wrong?
I think having a understanding of the past is important. I think that I know you hear a lot of, history repeats itself and things like that, but if you can understand where a person has come from, then you can understand the journey a little bit better.
I agree. I agree.
I feel as though like certain parts of the past can be relevant and cloud judgment, me personally. But it's hard to know where you're going if you don't know where you've been.
Right.
So it's just because people pick and choose what they want to remember anyway.
Right.
I say know about it, don't forget it, don't let it happen again.
That's right. Fool me once, but you ain't fooling me twice.
Yeah. And if they did erase something out of history, make sure you teach your next generation that they erase that shit.
Right. Don't just let them forget it.
Don't, nothing really dies unless you keep it up. You know what I'm saying?
It only dies if you don't remember.
Exactly.
That is true, and I'm with y'all on that. And there's a lot of things that I see that were different, same era, but it may have been different because you were in the South, or you were in the East, or you maybe was in the Midwest. I noticed this, like it's really different. It depends on which part of the country you grew up in, as far as America even back then. Because like today in today's society, a West Coast person is way different than the East Coast person. You know what I'm saying? The mindset, the upbringings, and everything is just totally different. Okay. Everything. So when you look at breaking something down that's in the history, in the past, and then you have multiple people, and I think this is something too. When Martin Luther King wrote books, right? And then you have people that wrote books about Martin Luther King, that was around Martin Luther King. And that's where, when you dissect and get deep into those books and into those readings, do you find a differentiality of this person? You're like, dang, okay. The past, before I read these books, Martin Luther King was up here. You know what I'm saying? The freedom of speech, movement rights, civil rights movement, everything. As we got older and we started reading, we started learning about, okay, he did cheat on his wife. He did do drugs. He did get his influence from other people. Now, in a sense of it, before we got deep, you would heard that stuff. I'm like, oh, that's not bad. Everybody get their influence from other people. That makes sense. You know what I'm saying? It took somebody to inspire Martin Luther King for him even to want to travel down that road. And you be like, okay, I get that. But then when you deep dive and you find out the influencers' intentions were bad. Then you go back and you look at MLK like, okay, their intentions were bad. Your intentions may not have been bad, but your influence and what you was movement might have been bad. Might have not have been so influential to the Black community, because yet again, people that inspired you really wasn't for your best interest. How people look at me when it comes to Trump. Trump is not for my best interest, so why do I keep supporting him?
So I think that even a broke clock is right twice a day. So you can have someone who has negative intentions and cherry pick out the things that fit your agenda. So like the speeches that he took quotes from or things like that, those what he said and how he applied it necessarily wasn't bad. And I don't believe he had negative intentions behind what I believe he genuinely believed what he was preaching and ministering to the people or whatnot. So I don't think that just because he cherry picked a couple of things or some ideas from people who didn't have Black people in mind at the time that they said it, he took it and he applied it to the Black community and to the Black community's struggle. So I think that he may have had great intentions, but I always look at intentions like this as well. The road to hell is paved with them. So, that road is wide and big.
And I think I just found a nice video to go into that discussion right there. I'm keeping my fingers crossed that this is the right type of discussion right here, bringing this guy. And I bring him up because he really sparked this interest or this road. You know what I'm saying? There's other people that, you know what I'm saying, they sat down and gathered all this information and they put out these videos, you know what I'm saying, for us to have these type of discussions. Okay? And I think that's the cool part about it. You know what I'm saying? Able to have a discussion. So this one right here goes a little bit deeper and to see if you're right or wrong. Just to go a little further.
Kentucky episode where she had Delano Squires on. Delano Squires, whom I've met, who I had a long conversation with over the legacy of MLK. Very intelligent dude, have a great deal of respect for him. I saw the interview, and in fact, a number of people have shared the link with me through DMs and text messages asking if I've seen it. Yes, I have seen it. I think anyone who tunes into the interview without having any knowledge of the seldom talked about side of Martin Luther King might be inclined to say, well, this interview between Squires and Stuckey kind of strikes this middle ground.
I don't really see the need to be on either side of this, to be like an apologist for everything that MLK believed, but also dissect him and his theology in a way that someone maybe wouldn't be willing to do for Jonathan Edwards. Or so I do see like hypocrisy there kind of on both sides of this conversation.
When it comes to Martin Luther King, as of late, there are two sides. There are those who take the narrative as it was presented to us in public school at face value, who don't question it, who embrace it.
Right there, where I was talking about how we was raised in school and we seen Martin Luther King. And we like, hey, cool, that's how we know him. That's how I'm going to run with him.
Martin Luther King as a patron saint. He is to be enshrined in the fabric of our country, and it is considered blasphemy to say anything other than that. There's that side. And then there's a side that I'm on, which is to actually be critical of not only Martin Luther King, but also the so-called civil rights movement, of which he was the perceived leader, which, by the way, was a social justice movement.
Social justice and progress are the absolute guarantors of riot prevention.
Now, anyone who understands anything about social justice as a tactic by the Marxists, by the Soviet Union, by the Frankfurt School, you will understand why Martin Luther King, too, was a fraud and a huge problem for America, more so than a benefit to America. These are important factors that are just left out because we want to focus on this version of Martin Luther King as it's presented to us in our public schooling, as it's presented to us in the justification of the fact that we have a national holiday which commemorates him.
President Reagan went ahead and signed a Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. national holiday bill.
Just 2 weeks ago, Mr. Reagan said he would have liked an unofficial holiday.
I would have preferred that, but since they seem bent on making it a national holiday, I believe the symbolism of that day is important enough that I'll sign that legislation when it reaches my desk.
One of the interesting points that Squires makes in the interview is an analogy he uses regarding Joel Osteen.
If Joel Osteen was the most prominent pro-life pastor in the country and his work helped get Roe versus Wade overturned, do I think that Christians would find a way to honor him? Sure. Do I think that many Christians would still question his theology? Absolutely. I think it's possible for someone to do good working in that common grace space for society and still not be a genuine.
I had a point. Could the reason why America celebrate Martin Luther King so much, statues, documentaries, movies, plummeted, pushing him down our throats while we was in school? Could it be the reason why he's being celebrated and statued up is because that's their way of saying, good job. You did exactly what we needed you to do. So we're gonna honor you by showing you what we do when good Negroes do what we tell them to do. This is what happens when you do what we tell you to do. Instead of it being we're honoring him because of what he did for Black folks, what I'm hearing is
we're honoring him because Black folks made a big issue on honoring him in the civil rights movement. Other than that, he wouldn't got no recognition at all. But to go deep into his content and find out that his agenda really wasn't patriotic, it really wasn't for America, it really was to put us in a bond to where, okay, this systematic system that people love to talk about is here and it's for us. That's all we're gonna do is just listen to the systematic system, and we're just gonna play in the unbalancing of life. Because that's how he spoke. He spoke in riddle, stating saying, hey, the government is against us. The government is tearing down our Black community. This is what we need to do to justify it. No. We need to liberate the common thread. You know what I'm saying? He was a pastor, but spoke like a politician. Spoke in ways to where, you know what I'm saying, people had to go sit there and have a conversation to decipher what he was talking about. Because yet again, by doing that, now you got the Black community sitting there like, he had to speak like that. The white people, you know, the white people were listening. Everybody was listening. But I think he wants you to catch the message too, not try to decipher the message. And if you don't get the message, then how are you supposed to get the message? Because he want to talk in riddles and all of this other stuff. So then when you got a guy like Chad Johnson, who's like, okay, cool. We got recordings, we got tapes. Let's break this down. Where did this speech come from? This speech came from way over here from this guy. And when he was talking about it, his ideology was one government, one power, one man, one leader.
So you saying everything that Martin Luther King said came from somebody else? He didn't make nothing up. He had a ghostwriter. No, not a ghostwriter. He bit off other niggas' shit. That's what you're saying.
What we're saying and what I'm learning is that Martin Luther King agenda was not to so-called free the Black people in America. It was more to chain us under a programming system in America. Deception. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. No. Go finish your thought.
to basically to put us in a Democratic Party. And when we talk about the Democratic Party, we talk about a system. When you talk about the Republican Party, we talk about getting it how you live.
So you think that they used MLK to identify the people that was against them, not for them, and automatically those people are the Democratic Party?
He puts the Democratic Party agenda, yes. Would he would have been he would have been for Section 8.
Yeah.
So, where I do agree with some of the things that you are saying, I'm not gonna say that I'm a huge fan of Martin Luther King. Okay.
Okay.
So let's start there. I do believe that he if I remember correctly, I do believe that he was for federal like anti-poverty programs. He did talk about military, strong labor unions. He wanted guaranteed income across the board for all Americans, things like that. He was also nonviolent. So he did attack capitalism. He did attack war. He did attack like economic exploitation and stuff like that.
And he did get arrested. He did get arrested for fights in bars. So that nonviolence out. He did call a bunch of people with straps to go knock down a sheriff because a sheriff was so-called touching a little girl. That sounds like violence to me.
And I understand that, but what he overall in the beginning of when he first came out, he was very much nonviolent. Now, did that change towards the end? He did have a speech where he spoke about, he basically was like, hey, I was wrong. I think I've led my people into the fire or something. I forget what he says, but he does have a speech where he does say that. But it was too little too late. I think that some of his ideology did hurt, going back to something you said earlier, did hurt the Black community. One of them is the nonviolence. I think that hurt the Black community because one of the main points that I always talk about is how it made the fact that Black people had to suffer in order for white moral awakening. In order for white people to realize that, Black people were not being treated the same, we had to suffer. And that is a direct byproduct of being nonviolent, not fighting back. We just have to sit there and take it. That wasn't good for the Black community at all.
You're right.
Another thing, and this is a very touchy subject or whatnot, was integration. Martin Luther King was totally for integration. And if you look at it, integration dismantled a lot of thriving Black businesses. It dismantled a lot of thriving Black schools. It's particularly in the schools, when they closed down Black schools, all of those teachers and principals had to try to go to white schools to get jobs, and they weren't allowed to work there. So now you have Black students learning from white teachers and white principals who can't relate to them in the sense of the time of things that were going on, and these white teachers, some of these white principals didn't even want the Black kids there. That integration was not good. He was chasing this access to white institutions and white neighborhoods and white schools instead of focusing on the fact that we were thriving on our own in our own communities. We had nurses, we had hospitals, we had all of these things, but thinking that, oh, economically it would be better for the Black people. And it wasn't.
Understandable. So that problem that he recognized late that happened kind of brings up this story right here of where we have mayors who we vote for, we put into place. They say, hey, I'm going to tax the rich. I'm going to tax the rich. I'm going to make it equal for you and me. And then, you know what happens? The rich leave. The rich say, you know what? I'm going to pack my bags and get up and leave. How about that? Then you can't tax me. And then who get taxed and who got to hit that bill? Who get hit with that bill, ladies and gentlemen? The middle class to poor people. This is why Republicans laugh, or I laugh at when you hear people say we need to tax the rich. You can't tax the rich when all they have to do is get up and leave. We really got to start thinking about that shit. Like, I hear it every time. All we got to do is just tax the rich, tax the rich, tax the rich. I'm like, okay, cool. That sounds wonderful. But then you got to play cops and robbers because now you got to catch the rich. And I bring that up, and I, you know what I'm saying, Martin Luther King into this story right here for the simple fact that socialism is what this mayor campaigned on. He campaigned on socialism. He stood on socialism, and now he won on socialism in New York City. And this guy wanted to tax the rich. And now that he cannot tax the rich, he wants to tax the poor. And I want y'all to listen to this because this is like the outbreak of what Martin Luther King seen for the future that he was starting to recognize at the end of his so-called term of what he was doing in the social rights.
Thoughts on Mamdani's spending plans, which reportedly include $1.2 billion for migrants coming to New York City.
I mean, he's a psychopath. Like, the amount for migrants is crazy. There should be $0 for illegal immigrants.
But
zero.
I don't think you can have zero, because if they're going to be there, they're going to be. You have to feed them. You have to do something with them. Like, literally, if you don't feed them, they're going to be robbing stores. They have to. Human beings need food. What are you going to do?
Get them jobs.
How are you going to get a migrant a job?
Get them a job in Guatemala.
Wouldn't you rather give them food than a job? I don't want them taking American citizens' jobs.
Well, the whole thing's a mess.
The whole thing's a mess. But the point is, you can't just throw them away.
Right.
That's the
Unless
problem.
you're going to remove them from the country.
And while Mamdani plans to dish out money to illegals, he plans to crush taxpayers.
In order to get to this point of closing the gap on both this fiscal year and the next fiscal year, we are forced to raid the Rainy Day Fund, the Retiree Health Benefits Trust Reserve, and to increase property taxes across these other years.
Who's the dude with the tattoos on his face?
I don't know. You gotta look up Joe Rogan. Did y'all pay attention to that? Because I cannot tax the rich to give free money, as they would like to say. But I'm not going to say free money, so I'm going to take that back. You want to tax the rich so you can pay for illegal immigrants in your city. Not to help the homeless, not to help the blacks, not to help the legal immigrants. No, this to help the illegal immigrants. You would have to tax the common, everyday people. And to go back to the Martin Luther King thing, is the immigration problem that Martin Luther King immigrating white folks into black folks. Now, do I think that's a problem? I'm starting to see that it might have been. At first, I was on a bandwagon of no, couldn't be that bad. No, it's not that bad. But when you got people doing this right here, who don't know how to do budget cuts, going into your budget, see how much y'all pay, cut some of these spendings somewhere on here, break some things down, take some money from here, take some money from there, swing it over here, swing it over there. Nothing wrong with that. But you don't want to do that. You want to raise money. When you raise money, you raise money. Matter of fact, when he first got in office, he raised money to put in his pockets. He raised his pay rate. He just got in the office. Paying you for you ain't even did nothing. Okay.
I need my money back.
New York City residents are livid.
Mayor Zoran Mondani, you are out your goddamn mind. To want to raise our property taxes in Southeast Queens all across the city.
Mayor, you came in with a good talk, but you're not walking the good walk.
The water went up, the gas went up, light bill went up. Now property taxes?
Hey, New Yorkers. Hold on. Y'all know what time it is. Gotta do my close-up. New Yorkers. I don't want to hear Trump. I don't want to hear Trump name. Oh, gas prices rose. All this in New York City. I don't want to hear that. You better listen to these fellas right here. They're telling you the truth of who the problem is in New York City, okay?
They look like they about to separate.
Dog. I seen an article. I don't know if they're gonna bring it up here, but a dude had just paid his house off in Queens somewhere in New York City. Just paid it off, and then had to turn right around and get his porch redone and his roof redone. Right? Just paid off the crib, and now you're trying to tell me my taxes just went up and I gotta pay something. I gotta pay something else.
Right.
I just got comfortable.
Right.
What are you doing here? Do your job as mayor and leave our taxes out.
And as cracks emerge in blue state New York, let's bring in the governor of the ruby red state of Arkansas, Sarah Sanders. Governor Sanders, a massive budget, taxes up 10.5% potentially for property taxes. You have a different model in Arkansas.
We do. You have to wonder, what did people think was going to happen when he was campaigning and Mamdani's telling everybody he's going to give everything away for free? At some point, somebody has to pay for it. And his plan all along has been to put that on the backs of the taxpayers. Somebody has to pick up the tab, and people should have been asking during his campaign, who's going to pay for all of these things? You don't build a strong economy by giving things away. You do it by helping make it easier for people to work, easier for people to start a business, getting regulations out of the way. He's done the exact opposite. It's no surprise people are fleeing states like New York and California, where they're making it harder to do it the right way. Arkansas, for the second year in a row, has been one of the top states people are moving into because we've done things that make a difference, like lowering taxes, removing barriers for businesses to actually thrive, empowering parents when it comes to education. Those are the things people are looking for, and red states have become huge beneficiaries of the craziness that's happening in places like New York and California.
Yeah, it's quite a contrast. And I'm hoping people see that contrast as we head into November. And I know Arkansas early voting begins in just a few days here. I want to ask you about another topic. It's been in the news, and it's this social media trial that's happening. I was exploring something that you were working on there in Arkansas, and I'm very much supportive of it as a mother. And you guys endeavored in Arkansas to require parental consent for minors. And we have a map of the United States we'll pull up. And these are the states that are trying to find a solution for children who are victims of social media. But a court struck down your effort. Tell me a little bit about that.
You know, one of the things that we've seen taking place, if you look at all of the data over the last decade plus, we're seeing a terrible trend with anxiety, depression, suicide rates, class participation dropping, all those other areas skyrocketing. And we've been on a bad trajectory in this space for a long time. One of the biggest things driving that is complete and total unfettered access to social media and smartphones. So we wanted to do something about that in our state, help lead the way. And we've been fighting big tech companies like you. I'm a mom. I have a 13-year-old, a 12-year-old, and a 10-year-old. So I'm seeing this and living it in real time. Trust me, it's not super popular at my house, but I think it's the right thing to do. We know the impact it's having. We have to take stronger, more aggressive steps, not back away from it. We went bell to bell, no cell in Arkansas, and we've seen tremendous results since we implemented that.
That is wonderful, beautiful, and all that. I also want y'all to look at the story of raising taxes, right? Raising taxes, dividing up the community. And I want y'all to hear this story because I talked about it a little bit. Now, this story at the end right here on what I'm going to play is what they're doing in Florida about taxes.
What are they doing? They're actively trying to decrease, to get rid of property taxes.
He's talking property taxes now. If you can't get some other tax increase from the governor, what are you doing with property taxes? You're going to phase them out completely?
Well, first of all, didn't he run on affordability? How is it more affordable to raise property taxes on working class people? I just don't understand that. So what we're working through, and we got to work with the Florida legislature, is phasing out the property tax for Florida residents and their primary, what we call a homesteaded property. And the way it works in Florida is that's about a third of all the property tax revenue because, you know, these local governments are taxing investment properties, snowbirds, second, third homes, businesses, all those other things. And so the context of this is in 2019, local governments in Florida brought in $32 billion in property tax revenue. Now they're bringing in $60 billion. So if you go back to that 2019 level of spending, you give them population growth, you give them the inflation, even at a couple percent a year on top of that, you're not even close to 60 billion. So they're obviously getting a lot of this because property values have gone up. A lot of people moved to Florida, particularly during the COVID era, but people need relief. And what's happening, Joe, is you've got older people that have been in their home for a long time. They've had protection against valuation increases for 30 years. They're not downsizing because if they go from a 3 or 4 bedroom home to a condo, the tax basis is going to be so much higher that they can't afford it. So that hurts young people having access to be able to do it. So it needs to go on the ballot. It needs to get 60% of the vote, and we'll be working on that through the balance of the year.
That's the difference, folks. That is the difference between voting Democrat and voting Republican, especially at the local level. So for all these black pill, right-wing people, there's no difference between votes for Democrats and Republicans. They're all the same. No, that is a lie, especially at the local and state level. They're not the same, right? There are big differences. And you're seeing it. In Florida, they're trying to get rid of property taxes, right? They say, hey, some of these local governments are getting too fat. They're getting too much money, okay? And this is becoming a problem, so therefore we're going to decrease your taxes, right? We're going to give you relief for homeowners, for working folks, right? Meanwhile, New York, run by Democrats, they're trying to increase your taxes. There's a huge difference. Huge difference.
That is something that Martin Luther King, I believe, seen late. And that right there is what divides us more than just the name of the guy that's in the office in the White House. Now, when I can sit on not just political panel, but when I can sit on an average panel and I can get that through somebody's thick head and skull, like I'm not really trying to argue. That's why I don't get the uproar when I hear Trump no more, because I'm like, okay, I'm kind of past the Trump. I see the bigger problem. And now my circle's starting to see the bigger problem. And for the people that still uproar, it's still the orange man. The orange man is still better. The orange man ain't even got great orange hair no more. His hair ain't even orange. It's really it's spoiled orange. It's off white. The hell?
I think that the more people who watch this show, it'll make it easier for them to understand now the difference, because misunderstanding is a motherfucker. And yeah, he did. He realized way too late that he knew people were gonna blindly follow and keep following and keep following it.
I'm not up here to bash Martin Luther King.
I'm not.
And I don't think nobody's on here sitting up here and want to bash Martin Luther King. What I want to do is to dissect it, understand it, you know what I'm saying? Learn from his mistakes, because I think that's what he would. I think that's what all mankind, and I had to really use that specifically. Mankind really wants us to do is to grow your world, learn from my mistakes, and do better. Okay.
Yeah.
Understand Martin Luther King wasn't perfect. Hell, you can't be perfect living in America. And especially in his era, like, heck, no, Martin Luther King, no. My guy. You know what I'm saying? It's when we have a discussion is where the person on the other side is automatically is going to think, you think this way. You're in your feelings. You feel this way. How you going? Oh, here we go. Tell me about how I feel or how I think, when I can tell you how I think and feel about a certain situation or a specific topic that you be on. You know, and for Martin Luther King to represent a big movement, we don't have nobody in today's society that's doing that at all. If you could say Barack Obama represented us in the movement, go right ahead. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to knock you. That's probably, after that, then you can say that's the last. After Barack Obama, you can't, who?
I can't name anybody.
It ain't nobody. That's sad. It is Black community. We should have every generation some type of Black leader movement, something.com.
So, do you think that we would benefit from segregating again?
Separating?
Yeah. Because that's what I heard. Like, I really don't follow social studies. It's one of those things that just make me, I have to pay extra attention in order for me to keep up. And so,
hey, you know what? If you would have asked me this 4 years ago, I got to be honest with you. You would have asked me this 4 years ago, or you would have asked me this during Trump's, I'm going to say it like that. You would have asked me during Trump's first term, I would have said, nah, we all need to come together and all that.
Right.
I'm to the point. And no, I'm saying my famous line that I've been saying recently. I'm under the influence. It separates, may not be better. It may not. Because all it is just, I'm separating for the moment to get my shit together. I'm not going to stay over here forever. But when I come back and we retangle this web, I'll be stronger. My community will be better. And you know what I'm saying? Let's just start all over. So yes, I am up to saying that yes, maybe we need to
reset.
Yeah, and I don't think there's nothing wrong with that. And let me say this for the record. Those people who spoke that in the past and I did not grasp it, now I grasp it. We should have had a decent more conversation, or we should have went down another rabbit hole. But now I understand why people think that way. Do I fully agree? Not fully. I'm starting to lean that way a little bit. You know what I'm saying? I think that's, you know what I'm saying? I think it's the start. You know what I'm saying? But I still think Trump is one of the best presidents of all time.
Who?
Trump.
He's a hell of a businessman.
Boy, that boy's a hell of a president. When you go into another person's country, swoop up your president in the middle of the night while he's on a military base, and nobody get hurt, harmed, no casualty. Oh man, shout out to you, Trump. Stop playing. We all came home. Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I think I have wrapped up my show today. I think I have made my point. I have shown what I was trying to get off. I do understand that this needs to go deeper. This is just the beginning.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I just wanted to finally show somebody why I want to go down this hole, why it needs to be explored. And for people on the talk of the tick who like, no, come watch my show. Come watch Weekend Madness. It's only an hour, and I'll show you why I think this discussion needs to become. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time that you're watching this. This is the Burn Live Show. Until next time, we are out.
Later.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.